This week's project is about making social media graphics, but there's the main things that they are teaching you is working with swatch groups, which we've done before, recoloring artwork. We're going to learn about how to space objects along a path, which is new to Illustrator 2025, how to export each element of this so that we can use them in other things, and working with libraries. So before we start the bookwork, I wanted to explain these things a little bit more simply. So we have this basic graphic, and you can see these are the different colors that were used for this. So we can recolor this a bunch of different ways. We could just manually go in and click each element and change the color. Let's go down here and say this is blue now. We could do that. It's going to take us forever. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. I'm going to select everything. You can either click right here for recolor, or right here, or over here in properties you can click recover. By the way, I am in Window Workspace Essentials Classic. So I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to click recolor down in my contextual taskbar. The book had you deal with generative recolor in an earlier lesson, and that's just kind of letting AI choose a color scheme for you. So we're not doing that. We're clicking on the real recolor. So there's a couple of ways you can look at this. First thing to do is to unlock them, and then I can say everything that is red, I want it to now be blue. And you see it changed everything. Everything that is this kind of salmony color, I now want to be green. And you can see it changed that green. So that is a way you can change everything that way instead of going through each one, and you can make sure that it's exactly what you want. We also can click on advanced options and do it this way. So instead say everything that is this deep burgundy color, I want you to change it to bright, ugly, out of gamut. Let's tell it to be in gamut, please. And you see it changed it right there. Let's go ahead and change. I've already changed everything. Let's click everything that is this red, I want you to be green. And what's good about doing it this way is you can tell it exactly what HSB you want, or you could click right here and get the CMYK values and type in exactly the CMYK values you want. So we're going to be recoloring artwork that way. The next big thing is exporting assets. So let's say we had created this as a poster, but we want to be able to use this later. So I'm going to go to my layers and make sure I'm on just the cardinal, the bird. And I'm going to click this right here and say collect for export. And it's going to pop up this asset export, and you see it gave me just the bird. Let's go back and get just the tree. I'm going to make sure I'm on the tree. Yes, I'm on the willow branch, and I'm going to click this button that says to add that. Do you see this added those so I could save everything individually? And then I'm going to tell it, do I want to save it as a PNG or an AI or an EPS file? And I'm going to export it, and it's going to put everything all together in a little folder for me, so then I can use this elsewhere. Another thing that's good is libraries. So I use my libraries all the time. If you can see, I have multiple libraries. If you open your library, you don't have probably any. For instance, I have one called College, and you can see I have all the college color palette there. These are the college fonts, and then here's all the logos I might want to use. So if ever I'm working on something for the college, I don't have to load the swatches or any of that. It is all right here in my libraries. So let's say we wanted to create a library for this willow tree. I'm going to call this Cardinal. Say it's a client and I know I have to use this. I can click on that and say add this graphic. And do you see it's in my libraries now? That means I can go into Photoshop, InDesign, Premiere, After Effects, even Adobe Express, and that bird is sitting there ready for me. So if I'm doing something for social media and I just want to jump on Adobe Express, it'll be ready for me. Let's go ahead and put this one in here. And let's go ahead and add this blue color so that we know we've got that exact color. I'm going to add the fill color. So now if I'm in InDesign, I know I can get the exact same colors. So that's another thing that we're going to be teaching you. The last thing I wanted to show you is, let's go back to recolor. Let's say we had something like this and we wanted to change the colors. Obviously we could click on it and change the color of this one. We could do the recolor that I was just talking about, and of course we're going to go into this in more detail in a minute. So we could go and do this, but this is going to take us forever. So another way you can do it is we're going to select all of these and go to Live Paint, click and hold your mouse down and get the Live Paint bucket. Now, whatever I click on, so let's say I click on this bright green, whatever I go over, it's going to change to that green. So this is a lot easier than like sitting here and selecting each little thing. Let's say you had a very complex piece of artwork. I keep choosing green. If you had a very complex artwork, this would take you forever. You'd also have to split all these things apart. The live paint group is a lot easier to deal with. And you see that it's letting me put patterns, it's letting me put gradients. So we're going to be learning the live paint bucket tool. So that's just a quick explanation of what we're doing. Let's go over to the book. So one of the things you need to know is social media graphics are constantly changing. So this is from October 2024. This is what the dimensions are, but they literally change every year. And even if you think about this right now, they have Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. But since 2024, we've got Lemon 8 and Blue Sky. Like, I'm not sure what they are. So this is such an emerging technologies that you have to keep up with it. So if you are making something for a client or for yourself, always go search on Google and put in 2025 or whatever year it is, and make sure you've got the right dimensions because these change constantly. Let's go back over to Illustrator. File open and go find your student files. The one we are using this week is called Games. You will have to unzip that first. I've already unzipped mine. And you will see that there is a folder called Assets. We're going to be loading those assets. So if you look at it, there is nothing in there now, but we're going to load assets later. So go ahead and open up the Club 42. Let's say Open. And this is our basic graphic. Before we continue, let's go ahead and save it. So File, Save As. Go find your Work in Progress folder. I'm going to make a new folder called Games. And I'm going to name this properly using SEO. So now whenever I hit File Save or Control S for Save As, it will save properly with the name that I can turn it in. So we are going to be using the rulers. If you do not have them open, go to View, Rulers, Show Rulers. Mine are already turned on and you can see them up there. Look at your rulers and you can see that this is the proper dimensions that they told us. This is for a Facebook feed. So it is a 1200 by 600 and don't remember exactly what it said. 630? No. Yeah, 630. Okay, so let's hide everything except for this background layer. So we're just going to be dealing with the background layer right now. And we're going to click on it, make sure that it is targeted, and you can see the little box. That means that we've got that one selected. Open up your swatches panel here, and with that layer selected, we're going to click right here on this little folder icon and say New Swatch Group, and let's call this Eclipse Colors. Selected artwork should be checked. Convert process to global is checked, and include swatches for tints is unchecked. And hit OK. And you see it's taken all of those colors that were in that artwork and added them. And this is the type of thing you would want to do if you needed to save this because we were making multiple graphics on it. You could save this as a swatch group. You could put it in your library. Okay, we're going to click the little folder icon to make sure just those are selected. And we're going to click this button right here for Edit or Apply Swatch Group. And this is going to pop up. You can see it is the Recolor artwork that we were dealing with at the beginning. It's showing us all the different colors and how it is made up on this art, on this piece up in the background. So right now it was on a sign. That's what we were doing a minute ago, but we need to go to Edit. We're going to click this button right here to link the harmony colors. It may be already clicked for you. Just make sure it looks like that right there, and that means they are, that's the way we need it for this particular thing. Now down here, mine is on CMYK because I was just messing with it, so we're going to click on it and make sure it goes back to hue, saturation, and balance. And we need to make sure that this right here, Recolor Artwork, is checked. And all we want to do is we want to make this brighter than it was before. That's why we chose hue, saturation, and balance. So if we were changing the colors, we probably would choose CMYK, but we just want to change the brightness. So we're just going to make this a little bit brighter than it is right now. So we're going to go from 27. The book says 35, but I actually would go higher than that. I'm going to go to 40. So somewhere between 35 and 40. And say, okay, so do you see that we were able to brighten up every single thing at the same time using the Recolor Artwork? And because we did it here within swatches, it recolored our swatches for us also. Go ahead and save, Control S. Let's go back to the Layers panel and make everything visible. But lock the background layer, so just click right here and lock that. Now choose Select All, Control A, or you can go up to Select All. And we're going to click Recolor. It's right over here in our Properties panel. Click Recolor. Now for this one, we need to unlink the harmony colors. We had them linked together because we were changing the brightness of all of them in the last one. But we want to unlink these because we're changing just one color on this one. Now we're going to click this right here to make sure we are on the saturation and brightness. So it's this button right here. We're going to pick up the blue and drag it and drop it on top of where the red is. So you see it changed everything that was blue to that red. But now we need to go into Advanced and make sure that's the exact red. So click Advanced Options. And when I was messing with it before, we were in Edit. This time we need to be in Assign. So let's pick up that red and drag it actually on top of the blue and just drop it. And you should see there are now two. So now make sure this whole thing is selected. Just select off of it and then select back right here. So we've got all of this selected. We're going to click right here and we're going to make sure we're in RGB, because this is going to go to social media, which will be RGB. So we need to make sure we're in RGB. And now we need to make sure this is the exact red that our client wants. So we just kind of chose a generic red. We're going to make sure it's exactly their red, which would be 190. 190 for the R. And the blue should be 40. So that's their exact red for this company. And right here where it says Artwork Colors, we're going to call that Client Colors. And before we close this out, we're going to click this button right here to create a new swatch group. So when we look in swatches, we're going to see these exact colors for us. So we have the Eclipse colors we made, and now we have the client colors. Go ahead and hit OK. And you can look in your swatch group. We now have two different swatch groups. If you hover over them, you'll see that one's called Client Colors and this one's called Eclipse Colors. Let's go ahead and save again, Control S. Now the last thing we need to do, you see that it actually gave us two reds. One is the first red that we kind of accidentally made, but it wasn't exactly right. And then this second one is the correct red. You see that says 190 and 40. So we need to take that red and throw it in the trash can. So literally pick up that other red and throw it in the trash can, because that was the little bit off red that we made. So now we have proper colors, and we could use this again if we wanted to. Let's go back to the Layers panel and turn everything off except for the one called Logo Background. And let's make sure that it is selected. Now we're going to use the Live Paint Bucket tool that I was telling you about. It should be over here underneath the Shape Builder tool. So just click and hold down, and click your mouse and hold down, and you'll find the Live Paint Bucket tool. Let's open up our swatches. We're going to get the light yellow swatch in the Client Colors, which is that second one, and it's going to load it into our Live Paint Bucket tool. And we're going to click on that largest one right here, and it's going to change that one to yellow. We now need to just go around the circle and do every other one using the Live Paint Bucket tool. And if you make a mistake, just Control Z, back it up. So we have able to recolor that very simply using the Live Paint Bucket tool. Okay, let's go back to the layers panel, and we're going to turn everything back on again so we can see everything. Now we're going to use this new tool, which is going to take all of these little icons and put them along that path. And like I said, this is brand new to Illustrator. So let's turn off everything but icons and select that layer. So you see we have all of those selected. And there's a new tool down here called Objects on a Path. So it should be at the very bottom. Remember that if you can't see a tool, you can always click right here in this little edit toolbar, and there's everything available. But if you are in Essentials Classic, it should be right here. We're going to click on the Objects on a Path tool. And it's asking us to click on the target path. So we're just going to put over the top of that and click once. And it has taken all of those objects and put them on that path for us. So if you get your selection tool and just select this whole thing, you're going to have some various different things. You could rotate all of them and you could move them. We're going to click on this space one here, and we're going to drag it to the left until it's about 135. And you see it's moving all of them together. That's good. Now the move now we need to grab the move widget, and it's hard to see. I'm going to Alt zoom in just a little bit so you can see it. It's actually that one right there. Do you see it says move all? So we're going to move those over until they're centered. So let me zoom back out now that I've shown you where it is. So the move all button, they're going to move them all together. Now we can move them separately, but if you click this button right here, it is going to be move all. Now we need to do the rotate, and we need to rotate all of them until they are turned the right direction. So just click that and drag until you can read them properly. So do you see the little circles in the middle? That's going to move just this one. So let's click on the little circle on the inside of the bowling one and drag it right so that it's actually on the other side of virtual golf, and then drop it. So it needs to be pickleball and then virtual golf and then bowling. So you should end up with something like that. That would be much harder to do. That would be much harder to do without this tool that they just added. So that's a fun new tool, and you have just learned it. Let's go ahead and save. Let's turn everything back on again. Right. So now with, you don't have to have anything selected, but we're just going to go up to Effect, Document, we're going to go to Effect, Document Raster Effect Settings. And you can see this is kind of what it defaults to. We need to choose High, and everything else is fine. Go ahead and hit OK. Now let's go to File, Export, Export As. We're going to go find our work in progress. Here it is, Games, but we're going to put another dash, and we're going to put Final at the end, and we're going to choose JPEG. Now I always like to say use artboards. It is not going to affect this. If you click use artboards, anything that's outside the artboard will not be shown. And so I just find I always do that just in case there's a couple pixels that are outside of it, but it's really not necessary on this one, but I go ahead and click that. Go ahead and hit export. So in our folder, we should have an AI file and now a JPEG. Make sure this is all the way to maximum, and this can be on screen. And we're going to hit OK. So now let's say we want to keep the logo and all of these other little icons. We've made them, but we might want to use them in another thing. So we're going to export these separately and have those in our folder so that we can use them again. So first we need to organize a little bit. So the book wants you to change this, and it's a good thing to know how to do. We're going to click on the little hamburger menu and go to Panel Options. And just change this to large so that we can see better. It's not a huge thing, but that's just something it's teaching you about. So go ahead and unlock background, double click on the word background, and let's change that to Eclipse Graphics. I'm sorry, Eclipse-Graphic. We also need to open up these icons and name them something better. So open that up until you see the actual icons. So this first group, just double click on the word group, and we're going to call that golf icon. If we don't name these, they would just be called group when we tried to export them, and that's not going to help us. So we need to actually name this one. We're going to call this lounge icon. And I spelled that wrong, so let's go put proper name. This one is called arcade icon. This one's pickleball icon. And this one's bowling icon. Okay, you can go ahead and close those icons. We've named those. Let's click on the logo and then shift and click on logo background. So we have both of those selected. You're going to go up to the hamburger menu and say collect in new layer. And you can see that it has put both of them together, because once again we're going to be exporting that. Let's change the name of that to logo on background. Okay, make sure to select the logos on background, and so that you see the little button that has actually selected all of those. And go down to the bottom of the layers panel, and you're going to click the collect for export button. And it's going to pop up this asset export. You see that it has put it in there for us. And it should default to be PNG. If not, go ahead and choose PNG. And now we're going to do this with all of the other ones. So go back to your layers menu. Okay, we need to click on the eclipse graphic. Make sure that's selected, and let's export that one. Then open up the icons, and we're going to export each icon separately. And when you're done, I would count and make sure you've got 5 and that they're all different, because sometimes you can get confused and put the same ones in there twice and that kind of thing. So make sure this is PNG. We're telling it we just want one scale. Now you could go ahead and say I would like a 1x version, and then I want you to scale it up because I'm going to use it somewhere else. Does that make sense? So you could have multiple versions of things. So I'm just going to click. So I'm going to click on the first one, shift, click on the last one. You see they all have blue around them. I'm telling them I want all of this exported, and I'm going to click the export button. It's going to ask me where I want it to go. I am put it in my work in progress folder in the games folder. Now if I want, I could make another folder called assets like we had at the beginning. Now let's put it in. I'm going to put it in that folder. And it has already done it. Let's go and look and see if it's there. Yep, you can see this is my original folder. So here is my AI file. This is my exported media graphic, and then inside here are all of these assets that are separate. So we did it correctly. So this next part you should do in the book, creating an asset library, but there's not a good way for you to turn this in. So I'm just going to really quickly show you that I had shown you I have a bunch of libraries already. I would just make a new library and call it Club 42, which is my client. And then I could do the same thing that we just did. I would click on each one and say add the graphic to that. And I could have these in my library. Like I said, you could go into any of the other programs and these would be ready to go. So you should absolutely do this to practice, but there's not a good way for us to see your libraries, so you do not have to turn that in. So what you're going to turn in is you're going to turn in the AI file, you're going to be turning in the completed social media file, and you need to turn in these assets. So how that's going to work in Blackboard. So here's my assignment. I'm going to go to attachment, and I'm going to go find my folder. I'm going to go ahead and grab both of those that I have to turn in. Now, because I have it in a separate folder, I've got to do these separately. If you didn't do the separate folder, you're fine. Then I can just grab all of those. So I need to attach all of those things and hit submit. Okay, I hope you learned about making social media graphics. Please go ahead and do this asset library just for your own learning, because I use libraries all the time and they're very, very helpful. Okay, see you next time.